What if I told you that one of the greatest acts of faith in human history happened before a miracle ever occurred? Before Abraham held a son in his arms, before nations rose from his descendants, before promises became reality, there was only a man standing between hope and doubt, a man who had received extraordinary promises, yet still possessed no evidence that they would come true. Have you ever found yourself in that place, trusting a promise while waiting for its fulfillment, believing while circumstances seem to say otherwise? Then this story is for you, because Genesis chapter 15 reveals a truth that every generation must learn. Faith is not believing after you see the answer. Faith is trusting me before the answer arrives. After the events of the great battle and the mysterious encounter with Melchizedek, I came to Abram in a vision. My words were simple. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, and your exceedingly great reward. Pause for a moment. How often do people focus on what they hope to receive from me, while overlooking the greatest gift of all, my presence, my protection, my relationship with them? I did not begin by speaking about possessions. I did not begin by speaking about land. I reminded Abram that I myself was his reward. Yet despite these words, Abram carried a burden deep within his heart, a question he had been carrying for years, perhaps even decades, and for the first time in Scripture, Abram openly expressed his struggle. Lord, what will you give me? I remain childless. The heir of my household is not my son. It is a servant. Imagine the emotion behind those words. Abram was growing older. The years were passing. The promise remained unfulfilled. Every morning he awoke without the son he had been promised. Every year that passed seemed to make the promise appear less likely. From a human perspective, his concern was understandable. This is one of the most beautiful moments in Scripture, because Abram did not hide his questions. He brought them directly to me. Faith does not mean pretending doubts do not exist. Faith means bringing those doubts into my presence. And I answered him, No, Abram, your servant will not be your heir. A son from your own body will be your heir. Then I led him outside. Imagine that moment. The darkness of night stretched across the land. The silence of the wilderness surrounded him. Above him was a sky untouched by city lights. Thousands upon thousands of stars filled the heavens. Then I gave him a challenge. Look toward heaven. Count the stars if you can. Can you imagine trying? Every time Abram thought he had counted enough, more stars appeared. Every direction revealed countless lights scattered across the sky. Then I spoke words that would echo through history. So shall your descendants be. At that moment, nothing in Abram's circumstances had changed. He still had no son. He still had no heir. The promise remained unseen. Yet Scripture records one of the most powerful statements in all of the Bible. Abram believed me, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Notice what Scripture does not say. It does not say Abram understood everything. It does not say Abram had all the answers. It does not say every question disappeared. It simply says he believed. And that belief became the foundation of faith itself. Many generations later, this moment would be remembered as one of the greatest examples of faith in all of history. But the story was not finished. Abram still desired assurance. He asked how he could know that he would inherit the land I had promised. And what happened next was extraordinary. I instructed Abram to prepare a covenant sacrifice. Several animals were brought forward, each one carefully arranged according to ancient covenant traditions. The pieces were laid opposite one another. The scene was solemn, sacred, mysterious. Throughout the ancient world, covenants were serious agreements. When two parties entered a covenant, both would pass between the divided sacrifices. It was a symbolic declaration. If either party broke the covenant, they accepted the consequences represented by the sacrifice. But what happened here was unlike any human covenant. As the day progressed, Abram waited. Birds descended upon the sacrifices. He drove them away. Hours passed. The sun began to set. Then something remarkable occurred. A deep sleep fell upon Abram. Not ordinary sleep, a supernatural stillness, and with it came a great darkness. In that darkness, I revealed the future. Abram's descendants would become strangers in a foreign land. They would experience hardship, bondage, affliction for 400 years. Yet I also revealed something beyond the suffering: deliverance, freedom, victory. Their oppressors would be judged, and my people would leave with great wealth. Think about this. Long before Israel entered Egypt, long before Moses was born, long before Pharaoh rose to power, I was already revealing the future. Nothing surprises me. Nothing catches me off guard. History unfolds within my knowledge and my purpose. Then came the most astonishing moment of all. Night covered the land. Darkness surrounded the covenant. And suddenly, Abram witnessed a smoking furnace and a burning lamp passing between the sacrifices. In ancient covenants, both parties walked through the pieces, but here, only my presence passed through. Why? Because this covenant ultimately depended upon me, not Abram's perfection, not Abram's strength, not Abram's ability. The promise rested upon my faithfulness. This was a covenant of grace, a covenant established by my power, a covenant secured by my promise. And on that night, I formally gave the land to Abram's descendants. From the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, a vast inheritance stretching across generations yet unborn. The promise was now sealed. The covenant was established. The future had been spoken. Yet the fulfillment would require patience. Years would pass. Challenges would come. Mistakes would be made. But my promise would remain. Because when I make a covenant, I do not forget it. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of Genesis chapter 15. Faith is trusting me when the promise seems impossible. Faith is looking at the stars while still standing in the darkness. Faith is believing before seeing. Abram could not yet hold the promise in his hands, but he could hold it in his heart, and that made all the difference. The same is true today. Many people live between promise and fulfillment, between prayer and answer, between hope and reality. Genesis chapter 15 reminds us that my timing is different from human timing. My plans are greater than human plans, and my promises remain true even when fulfillment seems far away. Abram looked at the stars and chose to believe, and because he believed, history would never be the same. If this story has deepened your understanding of Scripture, subscribe to Primordial Lore and continue exploring the greatest stories ever told. And now, continue to the next chapter, where impatience leads to a decision that creates consequences for generations, and Abraham learns what happens when people try to fulfill divine promises through human effort.